She was just a janitor until one night, with a single marker stroke. She solved a $500 million problem and turned the entire tech world upside down. Angela Ramirez moved quickly through the quiet hallways of Argentech, her rubber-soled shoes making soft sounds against the spotless tiles. The building was beautiful, all glass and steel, full of glowing screens, sharp suits, and brilliant minds. But at night, when most of the staff had gone home, it was a different world of silent. Echoing space filled only with the quiet hum of machines and the quiet footsteps of a woman cleaning up after everyone else. Angela was a janitor. She came in after dark when the engineers had packed their laptops and the executives had slipped into black cars outside. She didn't mind the quiet. She liked it, in fact. It gave her time to think, to imagine, and to breathe in a place where she was normally invisible. No one really noticed her, looked past her, around her, through her. Just the woman with the mop. Just the lady emptying trash bins and wiping down whiteboards. But there was more to Angela than anyone at Argentech had ever guessed. She was 34 years old, single mother to an 11-year-old boy named Mateo. Every morning she packed his lunch with love and encouragement. Every evening before heading to work, she helped him with homework. Sometimes they talked about stars and planets, or how phones worked, or what made rockets fly. Mateo thought his mother knew everything. He didn't care that she wore a uniform and carried a mop. In his eyes, she was a genius, and once upon a time, she had been on the path to prove it. Years earlier, Angela had been a top student at a state university. She had a natural gift for engineering. Her mind could break down complicated problems and rebuild them better than before. Professors loved her. She got straight A's. She dreamed of working for NASA or building something that would help the world. She even got an internship at a small robotics company.
Ah!
Everything was moving forward. Everything was possible, until life changed everything. At 21, she became pregnant. The father disappeared when he found out. Her family helped for a while, but money was tight, and support slowly dried up. Angela tried to stay in school, but between classes, a crying baby, part-time jobs, and sleepless nights, something had to give, and it was her education. She dropped out, promising herself it was only for a while. But the while turned into years. Rent had to be paid. Diapers were expensive. And dreams didn't put food on the table, so she worked. First as a waitress, then as a grocery store cashier, and finally as a night janitor. She took the job at Argentech because it paid a little more than others, and it gave her access to the world she had once dreamed of. At night, as she cleaned offices and scrubbed restrooms, she wandered past walls filled with whiteboards, diagrams, and code. She couldn't help but pause, just for a few seconds, to study them. Sometimes engineers left behind notes and equations. She recognized terms she hadn't seen in years. Binary trees, cursive functions, system architecture. The same language she used to speak fluently. Her hands were callous now, not from building machines, but from wringing out mop heads. Her back ached, and her uniform smelled of bleach. But her mind, it was still sharp. It still worked like a machine of its own, solving, testing. Wondering, she started bringing old textbooks to work and reading during her break in the janitor's closet. She downloaded engineering papers onto a cheap phone and scrolled through them between shifts. Sometimes she watched online lectures while eating her late-night sandwich. Most people thought she was just scrolling social media. No one knew she was studying quantum computing and machine learning, and yet, despite her brilliance, Angela never felt bitter. She had chosen her son. She had chosen survival. Just sometimes. Just sometimes she wished someone would notice that she was more than a mop. One particular evening, as she entered the 12th floor home to Argentech's advanced AI division, Angela noticed something unusual. The entire floor was still lit, though it was past 10 p.m. Papers were scattered on desks. Half-empty coffee cups were everywhere. Tired voices echoed down the hallway. She could hear two engineers arguing in the glass conference room. "It's still crashing after 2.6 seconds, one said. "It doesn't make sense. We rewrote the entire allocation system." Angela paused near the door as she emptied a nearby trash bin. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the words caught her attention. Memory, leak, stack overflow, parallel threading issue. These weren't foreign words to her. They were familiar. Like old friends she hadn't seen in a long time. She turned her back, rolled her cart forward, and told herself to focus on the job. But her mind started working again, solving, analyzing, building a picture from fragments. A puzzle she wasn't supposed to be part of, but one her brain refused to ignore. In the following days, the same chaos continued. Each night, she walked past rooms full of stressed-out engineers. They were working on something critical. Figured it had to be a major project, and something had gone badly wrong. She listened quietly as they vented their frustrations and repeated the same patterns. Something about their logic bothered her. Something felt ... off. One night, while wiping down a whiteboard no one had used in hours, she paused. A diagram had been left half-finished. Something to do with data flow and system routing. She stared at it for a long time, her fingers resting on the edge of the eraser. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Then, slowly, she picked up a dry erase marker someone had left behind. She didn't think. She just acted. Her hand moved as if it had a mind of its own. She added 3 arrows, rewrote a single function name, and corrected. A routing logic step. Then she froze, realizing what she had done. What if someone saw it? What if they got angry? She stepped back, panicked. She wiped off one part of it and left the rest. Then she hurried away. For the next 2 days she avoided the 12th floor. But her curiosity wouldn't leave her alone. Finally, she went back. Everything looked the same till she noticed a sticky note on the whiteboard. Whoever did this, where did you get this idea? Angela smiled for the first time in a long time. She said nothing. Left no name, no trace. But in her heart, a small spark of something long buried came back to life. Hope every night after that. She found herself walking slower past the whiteboards. Sometimes they were full of frustration. Sometimes empty and waiting. On one such night, she quietly adjusted a variable in a piece of code. Another night, she erased an unnecessary loop and simplified a recursive function. Each time, she waited to see if anyone noticed, and they did. Engineers began calling it the ghost fixer, joking at first, then more seriously. How were their mistakes being corrected overnight? Security was checked. No one suspected the janitor. Why would they? She didn't have a badge for the server room. She didn't attend meetings. She didn't even have a desk. But night after night, Angela kept doing her job, both of them, cleaning up messes, quietly solving problems no one else could. At home, Matteo noticed a change in his mother. She smiled more, laughed a little louder. Her eyes looked brighter. She even started talking about going back to school. "Do you think I'm too old to be an engineer again?" she asked him one night. Matteo grinned. "You're already the best one in the world." Angela didn't know what the future held. But, for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel stuck. She had found a place where her mind still mattered, even if no one had realized it yet. Not yet, but they would. Soon. Angela arrived at work 10 minutes early. She always did. It wasn't because anyone told her to. She just liked having a few minutes of quiet before starting her shift. The building looked different at night, still glowing but empty. It reminded her of a big sleeping machine. Everyone else had gone home. It's the engineers, the managers, the important people. Only she and a few security guards remained. But something felt different this week. On the 12th floor, the floor where she had once made a few small changes on a whiteboard, Angela noticed new faces. She saw engineers she hadn't seen before. Staying late into the night, their eyes were tired. They looked frustrated. Pizza boxes were stacked on a table. Empty coffee cups were everywhere. She heard them talking about meetings, deadlines, and bugs. The way they talked made it clear something was very wrong. Angela didn't ask questions. It wasn't her place. She cleaned around them silently, trying to stay out of sight. But their voices followed her through the halls, still crashing. "The patch didn't work. We're running out of time." Some of the conversations sounded like arguments. Some like panic. Angela emptied the trash bins and wiped the tables, listening without trying to. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the words felt familiar. She remembered terms from her engineering classes, her old textbooks, and the lectures. She still watched during her breaks. Race condition, allocation failure, system overload. The words stirred something inside her. They weren't just technical phrases to her, they were like puzzles waiting to be solved. Over the next few nights, she kept hearing the same complaints. A problem with the company's latest software. Something big, system used by major clients. Possibly banks or governments? It had a bug they couldn't find. A serious bug. Every time they ran the program, it failed after a few seconds. Millions of dollars had been spent building it. Now it was on the verge of being scrapped. Angela tried to ignore it. She wasn't an employee in that department. She wasn't even supposed to be part of the company. Not really. It's just a cleaning service hired to keep things neat. But her brain wouldn't stop thinking about it. During her breaks, she sat alone in the janitor's supply closet with her sandwich and her old, cracked phone. She searched for topics related to the software she had heard about. She looked into threading problems, memory leaks, and air handling systems. Her fingers moved quickly, her eyes scanning line after line of technical documents. Some things had changed since she last studied engineering. But most of the basics were the same. Late one night, she passed by the main conference room. Inside, a group of engineers sat slumped in their chairs. One of them had his head in his hands. A large whiteboard was filled with diagrams and notes, crossed out and rewritten a dozen times. Angela noticed a pattern in what they had written. A part of the data flow didn't look right. Something was repeating too soon. It triggered a memory from her university days. Something about recursive loops inside. Parallel threads. She couldn't help herself. Once the room was empty and everyone had gone home, Angela walked in. The scent of coffee and stress still hung in the air. She stood in front of the whiteboard, reading everything carefully. Her eyes moved across the diagrams, the scribbles, the notes of frustration. Then she picked up a dry erase marker. She didn't know if she should. Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled slightly. But she couldn't ignore what she saw. She erased one part of the loop and rewrote the logic flow. Then she adjusted the variable that was triggering the crash. It was just a guess, but an educated one. Her intuition told her this was where the problem lived. When she was done, she stepped back and stared at her work. It felt right. Her pulse slowed. For the first time in years, she felt like an engineer again. Then she heard a noise in the hallway. Quickly, she dropped the marker and walked out as if nothing had happened. The next day, the entire floor was buzzing. Angela could hear it as soon as she stepped out of the elevator. The energy was different, excited, confused. The bug is gone.
Is
Crash this time? I don't get it. Who changed the logic? Angela kept her head down and pushed her cleaning cart forward. She felt a rush of nervousness and pride mixed together. Someone had run her logic through the system. And it had worked. For the first time in months, the program didn't crash. The engineers looked puzzled. They argued over who had fixed it. Some thought it was a late-night mistake. Others thought it was someone from a different department. But no one could explain how the broken part had been corrected so cleanly. Angela didn't say a word. But every night, she listened more closely. She noticed that some of the engineers began staying later just to test new builds. Some stared at the whiteboard like it had given them a miracle. And then something strange happened. Someone left a sticky note on the whiteboard. Whoever did this, please come forward. Angela stared at the note for a long time. Her heart raced. She wasn't sure if she was in trouble or being thanked. She never replied. But the next night, she found another bug on a different board. This time, it was a misused function that caused a memory overload. She fixed it quietly. No one saw her. The following day, the same thing happened again. The issue disappeared. She was no longer just cleaning floors. She was cleaning code. Engineers began whispering about the ghost. Some joked that the building was haunted by a brilliant hacker. Others were more serious. One even stayed late just to try to catch whoever was making the changes. Angela got careful. She waited longer before writing anything. She wiped her fingerprints from the markers. She never stayed in one place too long, but still, she kept helping. It became a habit, almost like a secret mission. She would finish her work early just to have a few extra minutes to study the boards. Her mind came alive again. She felt sharp, focused, important. At home, Matteo noticed her energy. She was happier. She laughed more. She didn't complain about being tired. "Why are you smiling so much, Mama?" he asked one morning. Angela ruffled his hair and said, "Because I'm doing something that matters." She started dreaming again. It's not wild, impossible dreams, just quiet ones. Finishing her degree, maybe applying for an internship, maybe getting a desk of her own. One night, as she passed a small meeting room, she noticed something. New on the table, a report printed in color, stamped confidential. She didn't touch it. She read the title from a distance. Project Orion, System CR. Al-That is the name of the software. Orion and Angela had helped fix something inside Orion, something big. She didn't know exactly how big until she heard. One engineer whispered to another, "If we hadn't caught the crash, we would have lost the $500 million deal with Horizon. $500 million. She nearly dropped her mop. The weight of it hit her like a wave. The problem she'd fixed wasn't just a bug, it was a disaster that could have ruined the company. She stood quietly in the hallway, trying to calm her breathing. Then she moved on and finished her shift. Later that night, when the floors were shining and the trash bins were empty, Angela went back to the whiteboard. The sticky note had been replaced. "Ghost, whoever you are, thank you." She smiled. For years, she had felt like a shadow in her own life, just surviving, just doing what she had to do. But now, here in the quiet of the night, she had changed something big. Not with money, not with power, but with her mind. And no one had seen it coming. Angela didn't know that very soon the company's top leaders would discover the truth, that they would watch security footage and see her, the janitor holding the marker that had saved their most valuable product. But for now, she was content in the silence. In the glow of monitors and whiteboards, she was just the janitor, but not for long. Angela arrived that night like always. Same uniform, same cart, same routine. But something felt different in the air. It was hard to explain. The building wasn't noisier, but there was tension inside it, like the air itself had stopped too. Listen, she didn't know yet that something huge had happened. Not yet. She took the elevator to the 12th floor and rolled her cart into the hallway. The doors opened quietly as usual, but this time the lights were still on. All of them. Every single office was glowing. Every computer was running. And the rooms that were usually silent at night were filled with the sound of voices. Fast, intense voices. People were moving quickly. The engineers, who usually smiled politely or ignored her completely, didn't even glance in her direction. They were running around with laptops in their arms, shouting out numbers and commands. "It's fixed? Can someone confirm the second stage test? Wait, check the logs again." Angela quietly stepped to the side and pushed her cart against the wall. She didn't want to be in the way, but her heart was racing. She had an idea what this might be about. Still, she said nothing. Then she saw something that made her freeze. The whiteboard. The same one where she had made the changes a few nights ago. It hadn't been erased. It was now surrounded by red marker circles and sticky notes, all pointing to the one change she had made, the exact place where she had fixed the broken loop in their logic. Someone had taken a picture of the board and printed it. It was taped to the wall next to a table full of cables and test devices. On the paper, someone had written 2 words in bold capital letters. Who did this? Angela's heart jumped. She turned away quickly and went back to her cart. She reached for her mop and pretended to focus on the floor. But her eyes kept glancing sideways. She could hear them talking again, more carefully now, more serious. "No one claims it? Check the logs again. I want security footage from every floor, especially 12. Her stomach sank. They were looking. Really looking. Not for a ghost or a joke anymore, but for a person. The one who had solved the $500 million problem. She felt fear start to crawl up her back. What if they were angry? What if they thought she had broken a rule or invaded a private space? What if she lost her job? Or what if they found out who she was and laughed? She had spent so long hiding her intelligence, burying it under her uniform and her night schedule. Now it felt dangerously close to the surface. She left the 12th floor early that night. Finished the rest of her shift in silence. She avoided the meeting rooms, didn't pause near any whiteboards, and didn't touch a single marker. At home, she tried to act normal for Mateo. She smiled, made his breakfast, and walked him to school, like she always did. But her mind was full of questions. Should I confess? Should I say it was me? What will they do if they know? The next night, when she got back to work, there was a new message on the elevator screen. All staff floor 12 is under investigation. Nitrogen, unauthorized access. Angela stared at the message. Her mouth went dry. Her hands shook slightly. She knew. What it meant? They were checking everything. Every hallway camera, every second of security footage. They would find out eventually. There was no doubt now. And then they did. It happened fast. She was on the 7th floor, emptying a trash can, when she saw two people walking toward her. Not engineers this time. Not security guards either. One was the HR director, or the other was a man in a suit she had never seen before, but she recognized his face. She had seen him once in an article on the company's website. The CEO. He was tall, quiet, and serious-looking. As they reached her, Angela stopped what she was doing. Her hands were still holding a half-full trash bag. She tried to stay calm. Angela. Ramirez. The HR woman asked kindly. Yes, she answered softly. We'd like to speak with you for a few minutes. Upstairs, if that's okay. Angela nodded slowly. She didn't know if she was being fired, arrested, or just questioned. But she followed them. They led her to the main conference room on the top floor, a room she had never entered before. The glass walls showed a perfect view of the city's skyline. The lights outside sparkled like stars, but inside, everything felt still. There were already people in the room, 3 engineers, the CTO, and someone from the legal team. Everyone looked serious. Angela stood at the door, nervous, unsure if she should enter. The CEO nodded gently toward the chair at the center of the table. Please, sit. She sat. Her hands were sweating. Her heart was pounding. Then the CTO placed something in front of her, a still image from a security camera. There she was, standing in front of the whiteboard, holding a dry erase marker, writing the exact change that had fixed the system. Is this you? The CEO asked quietly. Angela couldn't lie. She nodded slowly. Yes, she said in a small voice. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I saw the problem and I thought, maybe. She trailed off. No one interrupted her. You used to study engineering, she continued, her voice shaking. Life got hard, but I still read. Yeah, I still study. I heard you talking about the crash and I thought maybe I could help. I didn't want credit. I didn't want anything. I just couldn't stop thinking about the error. There was silence. No one spoke for several seconds. Then the CTO leaned forward. You rewrote the memory loop and fixed the parallel threading glitch. Do you know how long our team tried to figure that out? Angela didn't know what to say. She looked down at her hands, waiting for someone to speak again. Then the CEO stood up. He didn't look angry. He didn't look surprised either. He walked slowly around the table, stopped beside her, and held out his hand. Thank you, he said clearly. You just saved a $500 million project. Angela stared at him. Her mouth opened slightly in disbelief. Slowly, she reached out and shook his hand. And then something even more unexpected happened. Everyone in the room clapped, real applause. For her, her eyes filled with tears. She had spent years being invisible. Now the most powerful people in the company were thanking her, clapping for her. She couldn't believe it. The CEO turned to the HR director and said, We're offering her a full scholarship and mentorship program. Effective immediately, CTO added, and a position in our R&D team. We'll teach you the new systems, bring you up to speed. You already think like one of us. Angela was speechless. She had come in that night thinking she might lose her job. Now she was being offered something she had dreamed about her entire life, a second chance. Later, she rode the elevator down. Her mind was spinning. She still wore her janitor's uniform. Her hands still smelled like bleach. But her future had changed completely in the space of one conversation. At home, when she told Mateo the news, he jumped up and hugged her tightly. "I told you, Mama," he said proudly. "You're a genius." Angela smiled and kissed his forehead. She didn't know exactly where this new path would lead. She knew there would be challenges, hard work, and things to learn. But she wasn't afraid, because now people saw her. They saw her mind. They saw her worth, and nothing would ever be the same again. Angela couldn't sleep that morning. She lay in bed with her eyes open, staring at the ceiling while the early light of dawn entered through the window. Mateo was still asleep beside her, breathing softly, his small hands wrapped around his blanket. But Angela's heart was too full to rest. The events of the night before kept replaying in her mind like a movie. The glass conference room, the engineers' serious faces, the CEO's handshake, the applause. Her name had been spoken with respect, not as a joke or a mistake, but with real meaning. After years of being invisible, she had been seen. Truly seen. She finally got up and walked to the small kitchen in their apartment. It was modest, just a few cabinets, an old fridge, and a table with a wobbly leg. But today everything felt new, even the air. She made coffee, sat down, and tried to process what was happening in her life. It didn't feel real. How did a single mom, janitor, someone who once cleaned those fancy glass walls, end up getting offered a scholarship, a job in research, and mentorship by the same people who used to pass by her without a glance? She wanted to believe it. She wanted it to be true. Later that afternoon, after Mateo left for school, Angela received an email from the HR department at Argent Tech. It wasn't just a welcome letter. It included documents for enrollment in the company's special employee education program. Subject line read, "Engineering Mentorship Program. Angela Ramirez confirmed placement in R&D division." She blinked at the screen, her hand covering her mouth. The letter included words she had only dreamed of reading one day: training schedule, work study support, mentor assignment, starting salary, paid course fees. There was also a small note at the bottom from the CEO himself. "Angela, we are honored to have you with us. You didn't just fix a system. You reminded us that talent doesn't always wear a name badge. See you soon." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did a little of both. The next few days moved quickly. She returned to work, but this time she was no longer part of the cleaning crew. She had officially transitioned into the research and development team. Her uniform was replaced with a badge, a laptop, and a desk, her own desk. It was a quiet spot by a window on the same floor she used to clean. The engineers she had once listened to from the hallway now greeted her with respect. Some shook her hand, others asked her questions. One of them even asked if she could explain how she had spotted the problem they'd missed. At first, Angela felt nervous. She still doubted herself. She hadn't touched real code in years. She worried about being behind, about making mistakes, about looking foolish in front of people with degrees and long resumes. But something strange happened. She wasn't behind at all. In fact, she saw things others didn't: patterns, logic, flaws, and shortcuts that seemed to appear in her mind like puzzle pieces falling into place. Her brain hadn't slowed down. It had only been sleeping, waiting for the chance to wake up. Her new mentor, a senior developer named Thomas, quickly noticed it too. "You have something rare," he told her one afternoon. "Some people learn engineering by the book. Others just see it. You're one of the others." Angela smiled shyly. She wasn't used to praise, but his words stayed with her. Every week she attended training sessions paid for by the company. She studied hard, sometimes late into the night after Mateo went to bed. She filled notebooks with diagrams and questions. She watched old lectures. Online, relearning what she had once known, discovering all that had changed. She felt alive again. At home, Mateo watched her with wide eyes. Their little apartment turned into a study zone. Books on machine learning and system architecture sat next to cereal boxes on the kitchen table. Her computer screen glowed long into the night, lines of code dancing like stars. One weekend, she took Mateo to the library. He picked up a comic book, and she borrowed 3 textbooks on software engineering. As they sat together reading, Mateo looked up and said, "I'm proud of you, Mama." She laughed softly. "I'm proud of you too, mi amor." Word about Angela's story began to spread through the company. People started asking questions. Who was the janitor who solved the $1 million bug? How did she do it? Was it luck? Was it talent? The answer, everyone began to understand, was both and much more. Angela's story touched something deeper. It reminded people that brilliance could exist anywhere. The greatness didn't always come from prestigious schools or shiny degrees. Sometimes, it came from someone who cleaned the floors at night, listened when no one else did, and dared to try. One day, Angela was invited to speak at an internal company event. Just a short talk, 5 minutes. She stood in front of a small crowd, engineers, interns, executives. Her palms were sweaty, her voice shaky at first. "I didn't come from wealth or connections," she said. "I came from hard choices. I left school not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Life got messy, and I became a janitor to survive. But I never stopped learning, never stopped thinking. I just didn't have a place to use what I knew." Paused and smiled, until one day I stopped waiting for permission. The room gave her a standing ovation. From that day on, she was no longer just a new engineer. She was a symbol. Story people shared in meetings, interviews, and even news. Articles, local reporters came to interview her. Then, national media followed. She was featured in a tech magazine. The title read, "From Mop to Code, the janitor who saved a company." Angela felt overwhelmed by all the attention. But she stayed grounded. Her days still started early. She still made Mateo's lunch. She still cleaned her own apartment. She still studied every night like it was her first day. But the difference was, now she believed she belonged. One afternoon, as she was walking back from the break room, she saw a group of new interns touring the office. They passed by her desk, chatting excitedly, wide-eyed at the high-tech workspace. One of them paused and whispered, "Is that her?" The janitor lady who fixed the system. Angela looked up and smiled. "I used to be a janitor. Now I'm just part of the team." The intern smiled back. "That's awesome." Later that week, the CEO called her into his office. It was the same room she had feared entering weeks ago. Now it felt like a place of possibilities. "We're planning a company-wide talk next quarter," he said. "Something inspiring. I want you to be the keynote speaker." Angela blinked. "Me?" Nodded. "You've done more than fix a system. You've changed how we think. You reminded everyone that talent can wear any face, any uniform. You made us better." She agreed nervously, but gratefully. As she prepared her talk, she kept thinking about that first night, the marker in her hand, the fear, the decision to act. Even when no one was watching, she thought about all the people like her, smart, determined, full of potential, but overlooked. She knew her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every janitor, every waitress, every dropout, every parent who had to choose between dreams and diapers, and she wanted to tell them, "You're not invisible." Angela's journey was far from over. She still had a degree to finish, skills to sharpen, and new challenges ahead. But she had crossed the line between forgotten and remembered. From the background to the center, she had stepped out of the shadows, and now the world was watching her shine. A year had passed since the night Angela Ramirez quietly picked up a dry erase marker and changed her life without even knowing it. Back then, she was a tired janitor working the night shift, with no one noticing her except when something needed to be cleaned. But now, she was part of the heart of Argenteca, a respected member of the engineering team, a rising name in innovation, and a woman who had gone from invisible to unforgettable. Angela's story had traveled far. It wasn't just a story inside the company anymore. Her face appeared in magazines, on social media, and in videos titled with headlines like "Janitor Turned Genius" and "The Woman Who Solved a $500 million bug." She never got used to seeing herself like that, but she learned to smile. and nod when strangers approached her at the grocery store or the library to say, "Aren't you that woman from the tech company?" At first, the attention felt strange. She had lived so long in the background that standing in the spotlight made her uncomfortable. But what made it easier was knowing that her story wasn't really about fame. It was about proof.
Proof that
Talent can live anywhere, even in silence. Proof that nobody should ever be judged by their clothes, job title, or past. Her son Mateo was the proudest of all. He told everyone at school, "My mom's a software engineer. She saved a whole company." His teachers even invited Angela to speak at Career Day. She went nervous at first, but quickly warmed up as the kids asked questions like, "Did you really fix something with just one marker? And can girls be engineers too?" She answered every question with a big smile and said yes to all of them. At Argent Tech, Angela worked hard. She didn't want her success to be just a lucky moment. She wanted to prove that she belonged, not just because she solved one problem, but because she had the skills, the mind, and the heart to keep solving more. She completed the mentorship program in just 10 months. Her mentor, Thomas, was amazed at how fast she learned. "You don't just understand code," he told her once, "you feel it. Like an artist who knows where every brushstroke goes." Angela was offered a permanent role in the R&D department, with full benefits and support to continue her education. She enrolled in night classes at the same university she had dropped out of years ago. This time, she didn't have to choose between school and survival. Now she had a stable job, flexible hours, and a company that backed her all the way. She often stayed late, not to mop floors, but to run simulations, test algorithms, or mentor junior developers. She remembered what it was like to be new, to feel like you didn't belong. So she made sure to encourage young engineers, especially the ones who were quiet or nervous. "I was you once," she would tell them. "You don't need to be loud to be brilliant." Her desk was no longer at the corner. It had been moved closer to the center of the open floor, where the big ideas lived. But she kept one small photo taped to her monitor, a picture of her and Mateo in their old apartment, eating dinner on the floor because they didn't have a table yet. That photo reminded her where she came from. One day, a senior executive invited her to lunch. Over sandwiches and sparkling water, he told her that the CEO had something big in mind. "You've become more than an engineer, Angela," he said. "You're a symbol, and the CEO wants to tell the world what that means." She wasn't sure what that meant until a few weeks later, when she was asked to speak at a global tech summit. It was the biggest stage she had ever stood on. Thousands of people, cameras, reporters, industry leaders. She almost said no, but when Mateo found out, he said, "Mama, you always tell me to be brave. Now it's your turn." She said yes. She practiced her speech for weeks, wrote it by hand first, then typed it out. She didn't want to sound like someone she wasn't. She wanted her voice to feel honest and human, not perfect, just real. When the day came, she stood backstage in a simple blue dress, holding her speech in one hand and a picture of Mateo in the other. She could hear the crowd. She could feel her heart beat in her ears. Then her name was called. She walked out into the light, smiling gently, her palms slightly sweaty, her eyes scanning the faces in front of her, and she began. She told them about her childhood, her dreams of becoming an engineer, and how life took her in a different direction. She told them about dropping out of school, raising her son alone, and cleaning offices to pay the bills. Then she spoke about that one night how she saw a problem on a whiteboard and, without thinking, decided to solve it. "I didn't expect applause," she said. "I just couldn't walk past a problem I knew how to fix." The room was silent, listening closely. Angela looked straight at the audience and said, "We talk about innovation, but we forget where it lives. Innovation doesn't only come from labs, degrees, or titles. It can come from the night janitor, the cashier, the person serving your coffee. Genius doesn't ask for permission. It just needs a chance." The crowd stood and clapped. Some were crying. Others were cheering. Her story was no longer just hers. It had become a message for the world. After the summit, she received thousands of messages, emails from students, single parents, older adults, going back to school, and even janitors from other companies. Some wrote, "I'm starting to study. Again, because of you." Others simply said, "Thank you for reminding me I matter." Angela made it her mission to do more. She worked with Argent Tech to start a scholarship program for underprivileged students who had left college but wanted to return. She also helped create a mentorship group within the company for employees working in non-technical roles who were curious about learning skills like coding and design. She never forgot what it felt like to be on the outside, so she built doors for others to come through. One afternoon, about a year and a half after her journey had started, the CEO called her into his office again. This time, he wasn't wearing a suit, just a button-up shirt and a relaxed smile. "We're launching a new project," he said. "A product that will help companies find hidden talent within their own staff. People like you, we'd like you to lead the team." Angela sat back, stunned. "You want me to lead it?" "We need your vision, your story, your way of seeing people." She took a deep breath and said yes. The new project was called Bridge. Its purpose was to connect people in entry-level jobs with learning resources. Coding boot camps and mentorship, all inside the companies they already worked for. It offered scholarships, small group classes, even guidance from senior engineers. Angela led the team with compassion and focus. She visited warehouses, cafeterias, and customer service centers, speaking to workers who never dreamed of becoming engineers. She told them, "I used to be you. If someone gives you a chance, take it. If no one gives you one, make your own." Bridge became a huge success, but Angela didn't do it for praise or awards. She did it for the quiet minds. In quiet corners, the ones like hers, who had so much to give, but nowhere to give it. 2 years after that first night with the whiteboard, Angela stood once again in a classroom, not as a student, but as a guest lecturer at her old university. She had finally completed her degree while working full-time. The applause from the students made her smile. But what touched her most was seeing Matteo sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. After the lecture, as they walked together through the campus, he said, "You're amazing, Mama. I want to be like you when I grow up." Angela looked at her son, her heart full. She remembered the nights when she had cried quietly after putting him to bed, wondering if she had failed him, wondering if she'd ever become someone he could look up to. Now she knew the answer. She wrapped her arm around his shoulder. "You'll be even better," she said softly. Angela's story wasn't just about a janitor fixing a system error. It was about courage. It's about not waiting for someone to notice you. About using your mind even when no one is watching. It was about rising when you're told to stay down, believing in yourself, even when the world forgets you. She didn't just fix a bug. She reminded the world that brilliance wears many faces and some of the brightest are hidden in the shadows, waiting for one moment to shine.